Hello and welcome to an introduction to Ansible playbooks. Let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so last time we did an introduction to Ansible, and Ansible is mostly Ansible playbooks. This is an introduction to how Ansible itself works. So what is an Ansible playbooks? In simple words, an Ansible playbook is a YAML file, and a YAML file that contains a set of instructions. These instructions tells Ansible what to do and how to do it. These instructions are also known as tasks. What is an Ansible task? An Ansible task is the building block of each playbook. Ansible tasks can handle conditions and even errors. There's three parts to an Ansible task. There's the task name, there's the task module, and then there are the arguments you pass into the task module. In our case, we have a task named install Apache. The module we're using to run this task is yum, and yum takes two arguments. Well, it takes more than two, but those two arguments are name HTTPD and state equals present. Ansible has these things called handlers. So what exactly are handlers? Handlers are technically tasks, but they're a special sauce kind of task, right? So Ansible handlers are tasks that happen only after another task requests it. So the way it works is you have a task, and at the end of that task, you'll have a alert or a notify. And once that task is run and returns a successful condition, that notify will trigger the handler. The handler then runs whatever special task you wanted the handler to handle. So it is a way to conditionally run certain tasks in your playbook. That confuse you? Don't worry, it confused me too. Thank God for Google. Anyways, let's go back and talk about handlers one more time. Let's see if we can elaborate a little bit more and get a better understanding. Here are some key features you should remember about handlers. Handlers are triggered by notification. A regular task can notify a handler if it makes changes. If a change occurs, the handler runs. If no changes occur, the handler does not run. Handlers only run once, despite how many times you call them during the playbook. So if you call a handler named restart web, that handler only gets run once, meaning your web server will only get restarted one time during the entire playbook. Handlers also have their own section defined in the playbook. Just like a playbook has a task section, there is also a section either at the beginning or the end of your playbook named handlers that you can place those in. In the next part of the video, we're going to walk through three things. Before we get started, this video assumes one, you have Ansible installed. So if you haven't, you might want to go back to my previous video where I'll walk through that. If I haven't made that how to install Ansible video yet, I apologize. It is coming in the future. If I have made that video, please watch it. There should be one for both Red Hat based systems and Debian based systems. Once you have Ansible installed on a Ansible control node, your guests are going to need to be able to communicate with your Ansible control node. That's either with pubkey or SSH password. After that, things kind of just work on their own, right? We're going to create a inventory file. We're going to create a hosts file. And then from there, we are going to do the things we have to do to get logging configured. I know I promised Proxmox, but this is theory. So to learn theory, it's best to have visuals. And to help with visuals, I am bringing back JNS3. I finally had some free time to spin up my JNS3 server again, or rather rebuild it. Open source software is amazing, but when you try to resolve issues like building the right Python environment to get this spun up, you realize why people pay for software. Because you just want things to work, bruh. And when open source works, it's amazing, it's some magic, and it's free. When it doesn't work, you realize your time is important, and maybe you should just pay a guy to sort this out. Things you consider when you get older.
Now, let's talk about this network that we have on screen currently. So we have, well, first things first, I want to say ignore this part. This part is unimportant to your mind. Forget it existed. And in post, I'm probably going to block this out during these segments. What you want to focus on is this part right here. Look at that. Keep your eyes on the left of the screen, unless I invert this video, in which case keep your eyes on the right of the screen, right? So we have Ansible control right here. And what we're going to do is remote into Ansible control. Then we're going to configure Ansible control to talk to Ansible test 1 and Ansible test 2. Ansible control is our host that we have Ansible installed on. Ansible and Ansible test 1 and Ansible test 2 are the guests we are going to run our Ansible playbooks against. So the first stage to getting Ansible working after you have it installed, like we have it installed on our server right here. Again, this shell is for Ansible control. The very first thing you do is create a host. Well, you create a folder to manage everything. I think I've already done that. Look at that. I got a folder called Ansible Lab 1. So let's cd into Ansible Lab 1, clear screen. And then let's list the files there. And look at that. We have a host.yaml file. How convenient. It's like this was planned. Now, let's do nano host.yaml. And the file's empty. So when defining a host.yaml file, the very first thing you want to do is put 3 lines at the top of the file. And what that does is make the file reusable for later. After that, we define our, so this shell that we have pulled up is actually for this server right here, or is actually for this server right here, Ansible control. Remember that when we're trying to do our network discovery. So in order for us to get the rest of this video done, we are going to copy our SSH keys to these other 2 servers right here. And the reason we're doing that is because it lets us run our Ansible commands without being prompted for a password for these servers. So it just makes things easier. It's doing some pre-stage work. So now let's get that shell pulled back up. What we can do is a quick nmap -s. We enter our network, if I remember it right. And then we grep the results and we see what it spits out. Oh, that's actually our Ansible control host. So we have one at 192.168.122.223 and 122.222. So here's what we can do. We're going to do SSH keygen. Let's see. Do we not have SSH installed? It's all one word. It helps if you learn how to spell. Okay, let's continue. And there we go. And now that we've generated our SSH keys, let's run that nmap again because I forgot the hosts already. And then we can do a SSH copy ID. And we're going to copy our root to these hosts. Yes. And then we enter our password. There we go. And we can change this to 223. Okay. So here's what we can do. After we generate our SSH keys, we can do something like this. SSH keygen, SSH copy ID root, and then it's root at 223, if I recall correctly. 122.223. There we go. Oh, 33 and 22. I see what I did there. Okay, let's try that one more time. So what we can do is do SSH copy ID root at 192.168.122.32.33. And then we hit yes to save the pub key of the other host. And there we go. Now when we do SSH root, so you can see we were able to log into that remote host, or rather server 2, without an issue, right? So now that we have our SSH key copied to one host, just repeat those steps for both hosts. Once your SSH keys are copied, the next step is to create your Ansible hosts file. So let's walk through creating that Ansible hosts file. So we're on our Ansible host right here, Ansible control. Now let's hop back over to our shell. And basically what we first want to do is create a folder to hold our Ansible information. So I'll call this Ansible Lab. Then we cd into that folder. And then from there, we have to create two files. The first is our host file. I like to call this host.yaml. And then we're going to call this our syslog playbook.yaml. We're making good progress here. After that, we're going to open our host.yaml file. When creating an Ansible host.yaml file, what you want to do is start with 3 dashes. What this does is allow us to reuse this host.yaml file when we're doing stuff like Ansible roles. After that, we define our hosts, 2 spaces, and if I recall correctly, it is 192.168.122.233. And then we define our second host, which is 192.168.122.222, and then that's it. And then we should be able to validate that by doing an Ansible-I host-m ping all. Let's see, provided host list is empty. What happened there? Okay, I see what I did. So after you put the 3 dashes, you then start with the group. We'll call this all. And then you put 2 spaces and we define our host. We do all. Then you 2 more spaces and we'll define our host here. So if I recall correctly, it's 122.233 and 192.168.122.222. And let's run that quick nmap again. Let's see. We do *79. Let that run just to see. And yeah, we got it right. Okay. So now we should be able to do an Ansible-I host.yaml-m ping all. And let's see what that does. And look at that. That was successful. So what that means is our host.yaml file is valid and Ansible is able to connect with our hosts. So now it is time to work on our actual playbook. So let's get started. So now that we have our host file configured, see how easy that was? Don't worry, it gets harder. I bet you were feeling confident. Sadly, this is not a place you gain confidence. This is a place you learn. If you want to gain confidence, go to my garage channel, Low Spec Labs Garage, Low Spec Labs Garage, Low Spec Labs Garage. And let's continue. So when getting started with our playbook, we basically do what we did with our host file. We do nano, and then let's see, our syslog.yaml. We start with 3 lines, and then from there we define our very first task. Well, actually, let's start by giving this a name. First, let's start by defining the host this playbook is going to target. It is going to target all hosts. Then we can define the tasks on our playbook. Remember, tasks and playbooks get their own section. Then we define the name of our first task. And this task is going to install our syslog. Very simple, very straightforward. If you're following along so far, we then go back and we go to the next line and we do apt. We do name. We do state. We go back. We do name. We do syslog config. And then we do present. So let's break down what we just did. First, we defined the task. We gave it a name. We defined the module we're using. We called this apt, but we could have also did it this way and did ansible.built-in.apt. And then we'll find that we wanted that apt present. Now let's go on to the next stage. So after we do that, we then have to define. Then after that, we do editing syslog config. Then we do ansible.built-in.line. After that, we then have to edit the syslog config files on our clients. So let's do that. Let's call this task editing syslog config, right? And this time we're going to call a different module. And our last task we call the Ansible built-in apt module. This time we're going to call the Ansible built-in line and file. So there is a module in Ansible that lets us edit the lines and files. And that's convenient because on Linux, configs are managed through files. So we do path and we pass it the path argument and we do etc rsyslog.com. Then we go on to our next portion. We do regex, right? So the line and file also takes regex arguments. So we're doing regex pattern. And I got this regex from a Google search. There's actually a regex matcher. right? So we put that in. Now, let's move on to the next stage. After we do the line and file, what we do is we notify. Notice that we went back 2 spaces. That's because regex pattern and notify, well, regex pattern is an argument of the line and file module, and notify is technically an argument of the editing syslog config task, right? So for now, we'll call our notify, which in our case is restart our syslog. I just realized we didn't pass all the arguments we need for this. Hold on. Thinking one step ahead, boys. Then we do the line that we actually want to pass through, which is going to be right here, which is star. Remember that line we made earlier? Star, star. And then the log server is going to be 122 dot 233 5140. And there we go. There we go. Now we pass our handlers, or we define our handler. So we do handlers, and just like a task, we pass our task name, or handler name rather, and we do restart our syslog. Then we pass it the module we're going to call for this handler. And remember, handlers are just tasks, so they use the same modules that your standard Ansible task would use. Then we do name, our syslog. So we're calling the service module to restart the rsyslog service. Then we're going to place the state and restart it. Now, let's go back, and we should be able to run that playbook now. But it doesn't hurt to go back and make sure we didn't do anything crazy in here. Let's see, install rsyslog, yep. Edit line and file, we passed it the path. The only thing I'm wary of is this regex. We passed it the rsyslog server. All right. Technically, we need to get rsyslog running as well. So let's do that real quick. Cool. So off screen, I went ahead and got rsyslog configured on this server right here, Ansible test. And the reason I chose that server is at random. There was no reason. Let's see here. So let's go back into that playbook and verify. I know that server is 223. Cool. All right. So now we should be able to run this Ansible playbook. We can do it with an Ansible playbook dash host.yaml. All. Then we pass the group with the dash L flag. All. And then we pass rsyslog.playbook. And look at that. So we'll let it configure. And so it's installing rsyslog on that. Right. And look at that. It completed. So how do we verify that rsyslog is working? We can verify rsyslog is working by logging into our rsyslog server. In our case, rsyslog is Ansible. It is Ansible test 1. What we're going to do is pull up the console for that real quick. And then what we can do is go to root and then put in password. This one is still 233. We're lucky there. Then if we do a quick tail-f varlog syslog, that was not what we wanted. Leave that in. So what we want is tail varlog syslog. Right. And let's see. It says rsyslog server. So syslog is indeed up and running, at least on this server, but we haven't seen any syslog messages. Let's ls varlog. All right, and let's see, we got varlog, fail log, nothing with any of the host names. So let's do a more varlog syslog. And basically what we need to do is look through our syslog and see if we can find any messages from other servers. We have a message from dev template, which is definitely not this server's host name. Let's verify that. You see, this server is called rsyslog, but when we run tail varlog syslog, or rather less varlog syslog, more varlog syslog, and you look at the syslog messages, you'll see we have messages referenced from deb template. So that's basically one of our other servers, right? So syslog is working, and that's basically it. That's how you confirm that Ansible has configured syslog, right? And that's also how you run your first playbook. So again, that was some cool stuff. I'm definitely going to have to come up with a better format for these videos. I feel like I could elaborate a little bit more. But now that you know how to run your first playbook and how to use handlers, in our next video, we are going to do some Ansible automation with Proxmox. See, the fundamentals are important. You have to learn the basics first. It takes time, but once you get good, you can do some magic. Thank you for tuning in, as always. I enjoy your support. If you like this content, please subscribe. If you have some opinions, share them down below. And if you like this video, hit the like button. Otherwise, thank you and goodbye.